Hey guys, welcome to the Dragon's Voice podcast. I am your host, Truly Reese Deans, and if you are just joining me right now, just watching it on YouTube, then it's a bit of a sad day in Welsh football for many because, you know, with the recent knockouts of Connors Key, TNS and Bala, but I do commend their hard work and everything for what they're doing in Welsh football, especially in European competition. But it's sad. I know we lost off. We're only going down from fourth to three teams going into the Welsh into the European competition now. But I commend all those three teams to have done well. But anyway, let's just get on to the guest today here, and it's none other than the former Shrewsbury Town, Brentford, Nottingham Forest, Blackpool. I don't know where to start really, but he has played for Wales as well. It's none other than Paul Evans. How's it going, Paul?
Yeah, it's all good. Thanks, Reece. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. The first thing we need to draw the line here, right? So you say you're a Liverpool supporter. Well, I'm an Everton supporter. So it's...
So I'm 1-0 up already.
Well, it was 1-0 for Everton and Tottenham. So, but the 4-3 though, that game, Liverpool and Leeds. I know it's supposed to be about Welsh football, but man, what a game that was!
Yeah, it was. It was crazy. It was crazy. I worked for a year under Marcelo Bielsa. The first year he come in, Bielsa, and he doesn't change his philosophy at all. So it could be very interesting times.
So let's get on to it. Let's talk about you then. So how did you start your career in football then?
Well, I just loved football, like probably, a million other youngsters from a young age. And I was lucky enough to join a team called Shrewsbury Boys Club. They were very, well run from I think it was under 11s back then. And I think I turned up a few years earlier and the coach kept saying, no, you're not old enough. You're not old enough. And I just played for them. And then when things started getting a bit more serious, to around under 14s, under 15s, I had a trial at Wrexham. I was actually training at Wolves on a Monday night with the under 16s because that was the only time I could really get there. And I remember given a letter saying that I wouldn't be given a YTS. And my dad had to say, well, he's still got another, year or so at least left at school. And they were like, okay, come back next week. And then I had another letter saying, so that was a bit heartbreaking. And then I got scouted playing for the school in a tournament in Shrewsbury by Shrewsbury Town.
No, go on. Sorry.
No, and then that was it really. Just went in there, Centre of Excellence, one night a week. And then that was it, signed schoolboy forms and then got offered an apprenticeship.
So you spent the first 6 years of your career with Shrewsbury Town, and fair play, most of the times, because me being a Barry Town fan, I have to, when I'm on the coach or anything, if Barry are going to play TNS, we're based in Oswestry, sometimes we have to drive past either Shrewsbury and everything. It's a decent club, and I know one or two people who support Shrewsbury Town, but for you, what was it like to play for a club like Shrewsbury?
It was great. My dad actually took me to my first game at the Game Meadow. We went and watched West Ham v Shrewsbury. I remember being on his shoulders. And then just to play for your local team, it was brilliant. All I wanted to do was be a footballer. That was all I wanted to do when I left school. You get the career people saying, yeah, but what if it doesn't happen? What if this? What if that? And I'm like, well, that's all I want to do. And luckily enough, I think I started my apprenticeship in July and I'd made my debut in the November for the first team. But then it's quite funny because then I got told, we're not signing you on a professional contract because the government pay your wages, so we won't have to. So I was stuck on £35 a week. and that had only gone up from £29.50 a week when I hit 17. So it was, but it was brilliant. It really was. I think there was maybe 12 or 13 of us, first year and second year apprentices. And yeah, they were long days, but they were filled with a lot of fun.
Do you know when you did become a professional and you went off to play in the first team and everything, does any particular moment stand out for you when you were playing at Shrewsbury Town? Because there's the thing about a lot of people, when I speak to a lot of footballers and some of them, whether the big names or small names, anything like that, there's always a story to tell. And, and not many is told for clubs like Shrewsbury, because of the smaller clubs compared to what the big teams are. You got a particular fond memory of being at Shrewsbury?
I had loads. I had loads of memories. I scored my first league goal, the winner away at Wrexham. And that was mad because literally obviously is in between Shrewsbury and Wrexham. And then about a month later or so, I was walking home one night with my mates and I got beat up by the Wrexham fans. So I had to so I had to detour around the middle of Oswestry anytime I was going home after that. There was loads. As I say, I met really good friends there. There was good times, there was bad times. But it's all part of a journey, and I did have some disappointments. I think I'd played 15 or 16 games. Then we were playing against Blackburn Rovers away, and Kenny Dalglish was the manager, and he was my hero. And I got dropped completely. I'd played all the other games except one, and got dropped completely. So it was like, and then we made it to Wembley, and then me and my friend, who was an apprentice with me, we got dropped at Wembley as well. So there was good times, there was bad times, but I wouldn't change it, because even in the apprenticeship days, when the season finished, we had to paint the steps at the ground, dig the pitch up, seed it, getting the system on to water it. And if you'd done something wrong or weren't doing something right, you lost a forfeit. You had to stand in the corner of the ground pumping for about 15, 20 minutes to get the river water go in and then sprinkle in the pitch.
Do you think football today's football? Do you think that that's sorely missed? That kind of apprenticeship schemes where you're cleaning the stadium or you're washing someone's boots. Do you think that is missing from today's discipline of the football world?
I think it's definitely missing. I don't know if it's discipline, but it's more of when you realise then if you do become a professional, what you've gone through during your apprenticeship. You should strive towards that. Nowadays, the academies in a lot of clubs is probably as good as facilities as the first team. So when they make the step up, they're just like, it's the same. We used to have to do jobs. We would be in at 8 a.m. and you would never finish before 5 p.m. You'd been cleaning the boots. The day before match, you had to scrub the whole dressing rooms, home and away, the corridors, everything had to be immaculate for the first team the next day. And we were playing the next morning, but if it wasn't right, we'd get told, and then if it could be 7 o'clock at night, we'd still be there. And if it wasn't happy with the manager, he'd be, okay, no, do it again. Because then when you did become a professional, you respected, how lucky you were to be a professional. But I think nowadays I'm not going to say it's easy, but I think there's a few things that they don't do, which they probably should do to give them that thing for when they do become a professional, they, earn a little bit of it as well.
Yeah. I suppose as well, because, with a lot of academies, any type of club does things different compared to the others. So it just depends on what field, where you are, what club you're doing it at, and who you're going to play for, I suppose, as well, because you never know. Because I mean, it's like me with my team with Barry Town. We do some things differently compared to others. So it just depends on where you are at the specific moment in time, which football club.
Definitely.
And it's just like, I'm no footballer, but I mean, for the amount of people I've had on this show, and they've always said, the apprenticeships where it was 25 to 35 pounds. I don't know if it was per week or whatever it was, but it was that. Then it was, you got to clean the boots, you got to do this, do that, and this is how you're going to work hard to earn, your position in the team, and just be grateful about it. And it's sort of thinking, well, that is really good. It's like you say it's not discipline. It's like it helps you mature a bit as a footballer, if I'm right in saying so. But I don't know, from your perspective, you have played.
Yeah.
So
it did. But it wasn't like nowadays. You'll get some 16-year-olds and they'll be on, X and Y amounts already. And I'm not talking just at the top Premier League clubs. I'm probably talking around, League One clubs as well. They'll sign kids on, £500, £600, £700 a week. But the thing is, for these kids, and then now with the under-23 system, they could be on, £600, £700 a week. If they get released from there, they can't expect to go into another league club to play in the first team on that much money, because they've not really done anything in the game. You had to earn your way. I remember when, at the end of my second year apprentice, I think I'd played maybe 10, 12 games in the first team. And my contract offer to start with was exactly the same as a lad who had played 10 minutes in the first team. and that was that. And I was just like, and then it was only because the older pro said to me, no, you need to go and ask for a bit more money. It's things, but things like nowadays, I think clubs, and especially the bigger clubs, will sign younger players on just so someone else can't have them.
Yeah. And yeah, especially because, funny enough, me and my mates were talking about this, and I don't want to be open for criticism, especially with Cardiff City supporters as well, but we were talking about, where the youth system was going, and at the moment, one of the youth players has gone from Cardiff to Crystal Palace, Sean Spence, and it seems to me that with Cardiff, it seems to me that there seems to be a slope going downhill for them, whereas Swansea on it up with their youth academies and everything like that, but then you say that it's like, I don't know the ins and outs or anything like that, and then you try and compare what's going on in the early 90s, and then in today's time of how these footballers are approaching, how they're trained and how they're going to approach things and come into 90s, it is a big, massive difference, and
it's like a totally different game.
Yeah.
I really got to say, it's like a totally different game. Even the main games on the Saturday now are, they're totally different from how they are years and years ago. But it's evolving, isn't it? That's just the way it is. There's more players in squads. There's more squads at different clubs now. There's under 23s, there's under 18s, under 23s, first team. Back in my day, it was a youth team. The reserve team would probably be most of the youth team and a few of the first team who hadn't played on a Saturday. But I think that's just the way the game's gone and the game's evolved. But, I can't speak about other clubs or anything. I can only talk about when I was young. But there was a lot of good young players coming through Swansea and Cardiff. I played in the Welsh youth team with quite a few of them. Jonathan Coates, Di Barnes, Tony Bird, to name a few from Cardiff and Swansea. Wrexham as well,
Yeah.
There was always lots of good young players and everything, and most of them went on to, have a career and play in the first team as well. But it's, as I say, it's totally different today.
Let's go on to Brentford now, and Brentford is the club that you've made a name for yourself there as a club legend. And I've spoken to one or two Brentford supporters. They're like, oh yeah, club legend, and I was like, okay. But I really wanted Brentford to go up this season. Last season, I really wanted them. I thought they had the it factor. They had it, it'd be a nice fairy tale story for them to go into the Premier League, to move from the old ground into the new, and
yeah.
How did you feel about their process last season and how they tried to get promoted?
I was the same. I was gutted. I thought, leaving Griffin Park after so long, I still speak to, a couple of people who work around the club who've been there a long time. And it was as though it was a fairy tale written in the stars, but it's football. Nothing's written in the stars. And everybody knows, that everybody thought, that it was going to be the perfect ending, but it wasn't. But they've got another time, another go this year. They're in the new stadium, so they get promoted to the Premier League this year. It'll be a first year in the new stadium, which they deserve a new stadium. The brand of football that they play is really good. I think it's the right way of the way they want to play, but they just fell short at the end. And it's a long, hard season, and especially last year with everything that went on. But they'll learn from it. Look at Leeds. The season before, Leeds lost to Derby in the playoffs and just faded away. This year they went, everybody thought that they might, slip up again and it was going to be West Brom or Brentford, but they kicked on and they won the league quite comfortably in the end. So hopefully, Brentford can do what Leeds did and, win the league comfortably, and that'd be a great first season at Griffin Park, and not in Griffin Park, away from Griffin Park, sorry.
And let's mention about your halfway line goals then. Preston North End and Burnley. It seems when I was doing my research, all it kept mentioning the most was your halfway line goals, especially like I said about Preston and Burnley. So do tell about those two matches then. Well, why is it that I keep researching and those two moments pop up then?
Well, they happened one weekend after the other. The goal against Preston, we come out for the start of the second half, and I said to one of our players, keeper's miles off his line. He was like, go on, have a shot. I was like, you're joking. I'm not going to shoot straight from kickoff. And then they equalised. And I looked again beforehand, and he didn't. He was standing in the same position, so I thought, you know what, I'm going for it. And it went in. No one realises, because the camera goes off it, that I actually slipped when I hit it as well. But that goes in. But the Burnley one was the week after. But it was funny because I work at Sheffield United now, and we played Burnley last night. So I was just reminding a couple of our staff, have I ever told you about the goal I scored there at Burnley? So we went and stood on the pitch last night, and I tried to, well, I didn't try and do it again. I just showed them where I kicked it from. But no, it was brilliant because I'd had very little press or anything, as you say, playing at Shrewsbury. We did a little bit of press, but when that happened, it went crazy all week. I think the Evening Standard was down there, the local news. Can he do it again? He's not, and all things. And then the ball, literally, I think one of their players tried to play it across the pitch near the halfway line, and it hit the ref. So it just stopped dead. So I nicked in front of it, and then I saw the keeper, and I went for it again. It was probably because the one the week before went in. I don't know, but then I just caught it nice, and it went in. And yeah, it's crazy because I had to do a thing for Brentford for a kind of a leaving video, and they said, "Oh, which was your best goal then too?" And I said no, and they're like, "What?" I was like, "No, I scored away at Chester on a Tuesday night, and that was my best goal for Brentford." But everyone's like, "But no, that one's fun." I was like, "No, this one wasn't far from the halfway line, but the way it went in and everything, I caught it on the half volley and it just flew in, and I was like, wow." I was like, I couldn't believe it went in. But everybody always speaks about them 2 goals, but I'm quite happy with all of them, really, to tell you the truth.
No, that's fair enough. And I want to mention as well about with Brentford, because at the time you signed for Brentford, they were technically owned by the actual boss of Brentford Football Club. It was Ron Nodes, who was the manager and the chairman or / owner at the same time. So to you, for your experience with the boys and everything, when Ron was managing, but at the same time running the football club as well, how did you guys feel? Did you feel a bit intimidated that he was, doing 2 jobs at once and being in a position of power where he could do whatever he wanted? If you played bad, you probably could say, "Oh, you're fired" or something. But what was it like to have a manager and as a chairman?
He was a very clever man, Ron. I know he's passed away now, but he was a very, very shrewd businessman. He was clever. He was the manager, but he employed 3 amazing coaches, and then one of them moved on after 1 season, and Wally Downs come in. Because this is what I mean. He was very clever. We had Ray Lewington, who's gone on and worked with Roy Hodgson, Terry Bullivant, who was an amazing coach, and Brian Sparrow. And they did all the coaching and everything. Ron probably, Ron picked the team and just kept an eye out. But, Ron had never come on the training pitch and this and that. But again, he was the owner. So when you had to go in and try and negotiate the bonuses at the start of the season, well, you had no chance. The man was too clever.
Yeah.
The man was too clever. I've told the story before. When it was my first move away from Shrewsbury. So I lived in Oswestry, a little town on the English-Welsh border. And I'm in London on this Monday afternoon after doing a whole day of medicals, and I'm in there with my agent, and we're sat across the table, and my agent wrote something down, and I don't know what he wrote down, and he passed it to Ron, and Ron just looked at it, scribbled it up, threw it, hit him in the face. He went, "You're joking." And I was like, "Is this supposed to happen? What's going on?" And my agent's phone kept ringing, and he wanted me to go to another club, my agent, and I was like, "I don't want to go." It was Rushden Diamonds when they were non-league, when they were going up. And he went and took a phone call, and Ron went, "Look, he's asking for stupid money. I'll give you this, I'll give you that. Is everything okay with that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, what about appearance money?" "I'll give you this appearance money." I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He went, "I'll give you another tip, get rid of him." And that was it. But he was good. As I say, he was a very, very clever man. And Ron, probably from some Brentford fans, won't get the credit he deserves, but he did put the club back on the map. We won the league that year. And then 2 out of the next 3 years, we got to 2 finals at Cardiff, which, he didn't spend much money. So I think he took a lot of credit, but he was great. He really was. And at once, I think he was getting quite a bit of stick from some of the fans. So we just moved aside, and then Ray Lewington took over.
Yeah.
Till the end of that season. So
playing a bit of Moneyball, was it? Kind of, would you say so?
No,
No.
I don't think it was Moneyball. Ron had a lot of knowledge of, a lot of knowledge of players, and he had a bloke who was his chief scout, John Griffin, who knew near enough every player I wouldn't probably say around London, definitely, but probably half of the country. And John Griff made some great signings, and he did a lot. He did a lot for that club. It was no Moneyball idea or anything like that. He bought some good players, but we had a great, really good team spirit at the time there, and I think that got us a lot as well.
Let's move on to the call-up you had to go and play for Wales then. So Mark Hughes, was it 2002? Mark Hughes was sort of coming, I think it was just his last year or two at Wales. But how did you, what happened when you got the call-up from Mark Hughes to say you're going to play for Wales, and how did you feel when you got to Wales to play for Wales?
Oh, wow. Well, it was, there was talk that I might be in the squad a couple of times, and the squad got announced and I wasn't, which was fine. I was playing in League One as it is now for Brentford, and then my contract was coming to an end, and Steve Coppell come in the training ground and after Monday afternoon training session, and he just stuck his hand out and he went, "Oh, congratulations." And I was a bit like, and I went, "I'm not going anywhere," because I knew Bristol City were putting bids in. I went, "I'm not going anywhere." He went, "No." He said, "You've been called up to the Welsh squad." I was like, wow. So I literally got showered, got my boots, went home, got a suit, and I drove straight down to the Vale of Glamorgan. And I remember turning up, and Eddie Nitschwesky and Mark Hughes come, and they said, they went, "Oh, we weren't expecting you till the morning." And I was like, they went, no, brilliant. And trained on the Tuesday, and I came on as sub against the Czech Republic on the Wednesday night. We drew 0-0. I come on for Robbie Savage, and it was amazing. It was unbelievable.
What was it like to be playing with the likes of Robbie Savage, Ryan Giggs, probably John Archer, Simon Davis, all them players, and especially being guided by Mark Hughes as well? What was it like to be in the presence of those players?
It was great. I was quite lucky enough because in my under-18s and under-21s, when I got caps for them, I played with Robbie Savage, John Artson. So Danny Coyne was also in the under-21s, Gareth Taylor. So when I actually got into the squad, I knew quite a few of them. Obviously, when the Craig Bellamy's, Gary Speed, God rest his soul, and everyone were just amazing. Simon Davis, all of them, they were just brilliant. Really top draw people, made you feel welcome. And as I say, they were playing in the Premier League and I was in League One. But I always remember speaking to Gary Speed, and he's like, "Oh, you played so and so at the weekend, didn't you? You did well, this and that. Who you got at the weekend?" And he'd know, and it was just, it was just like, wow, he knows something. But they were just great people, and it was a really good time to be in the squad as well. I say I'm probably the luckiest Welshman because I think I was in about 5-6 squads, and I didn't lose a game. And in that time, we played the Czech Republic, Croatia, Germany, Italy, Azerbaijan, Finland. So I was quite lucky. And there's a couple of nights at the Millennium Stadium which never ever leave my memory. They were amazing.
You know what? A lot of people are saying now that because the Cardiff City Stadium is the home of Wales international football team, but how? I suppose you already answered my question then, because you said about Millennium Stadium, but or whatever we want to call it now. They called it the Principality Stadium, but Millennium Stadium. But it's like
the Millennium Stadium.
Yes, it's the Millennium Stadium. But if I should say, how special was it to have the Wales games at the Millennium Stadium, just to be out there in 70,000 people? If dare I say, because the attendances they were up and down, because I mean at one point it was like 14,000, then it was 70,000. But how special was it? So what is your thoughts? It's basically two questions. How special was it to actually play at the Millennium Stadium, and what's your thoughts on the games that Wales had at the Millennium Stadium when it came to attendances and that?
Well, I think I don't remember. I think there might have been around 20 to 25,000 when I made my debut. which to me, it was just amazing. You know, that night it's so special. And I was in the squad, but I didn't make the bench for the two games. I was on the bench, sorry, for the Germany game, and I think that was probably 40-odd thousand. And then I wasn't on the bench, but was in the squad. So again, this is how good Mark Hughes was. Everybody warmed up who was in the actual squad together. And they used to call them Red Wednesdays. So everybody was, you know, asked to wear red, the fans coming in. The music was all Welsh, you know, Welsh groups, everything. And that night, I remember, I think a few of us, we literally ran in out of the warm-up, had a shower, got our suits on and got the lift up to the box for the national anthems. And wow, I don't think you can get, you know, I don't think you can get much better than that. But then again, I'll always follow Wales and everything, and I've watched the games at the Cardiff City Stadium, and it seems very good. You know, I know they're what is it, 35,000 the capacity there?
Yeah, roughly around about that.
Roughly, yeah. So a full stadium is much better than, you know, a half full stadium. And the atmosphere they create in the Cardiff City Stadium, I think that's something special as well, especially when, you know, they start the anthem and they turn it off and the crowd carry on singing it. So whatever's an advantage, it's probably more of an advantage to play at the Cardiff City Stadium. If you could guarantee 70,000 at the Millennium Stadium, then obviously, you know, the Welsh FA and everybody would want to play there. But I think they've got it right at the moment, definitely.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's amazing because I remember my first game of Wales, and I do believe it was Wales v Northern Ireland. It was 2-2 it was, but I just remember how deafening it was. You know, how buzzing at the Millennium Stadium was, and how much. And I remember just being a kid, just closing my. But any kid would do that because, you know, the noise is too loud. But I just remember to close my ears, but I kept going, Wales, Wales, like that, because it was just the buzz you just get out of it.
Yeah.
And it could have been 3-2 if Robert Earnshaw's Pele kick actually was on point, you know. So, but
it's crazy, you know. You're talking about that. The first Welsh game I went to was Wales 3, Spain 0, I think, or was it 1 at Regs Course when Mark Hughes scored the scissor kick. And my dad had took me, and I was in the Cop End that night, and I'd say that stuck with me forever. And I went back, and, you know, they beat England there, and it was so good for me, you know, when Wales were playing at Wrexham. You know, because it was back then, it was, you know, you'd park the other side of the bypass and you'd walk down. It was the whole thing. And as I say, that night when they were beaten 3-0 and Sparky scored that, you know, bicycle scissor kick, where everyone's just like, it was, but it sticks with you. It really does.
What was it? You said that now, and years down the line, you're playing for him. You know, you're playing.
Yeah,
it just
amazing.
You're just looking back now, thinking, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
it was, you know. Well, I used to watch the Welsh games and everything. And when I was in the under-21s, he was in the full squad and everything. It was just, you know, the stature of the man and what he'd done in the game and everything. It was just like, wow. And then he was your manager. You had Gary Speed as your captain. You know, examples, the best example of whoever wanted to be a professional footballer. If you followed them, did what Gary Speed did, you would not, you know, you'd probably have an amazing career.
Yeah. And it's mentioning Gary Speed then, and I always try my best to, whoever I have guests on the show who has played for Wales, especially who played alongside with Gary Speed, you know, I always ask about a story or a moment or anything like that. And you can't say a bad word about the bloke. You can't say anything negative, because there wasn't anything negative to say. He was that special. But I think some people today, some young fans, probably, dare I say, younger than me, even though I'm 24, but it's like they're saying, oh, how special was Gary Speed? And people older just go, how special was he? I mean, you're thinking that Wales is Mount Rushmore of, you know, that kind of level of.
I suppose it's probably like our parents spoke about John Charles.
Yeah.
You know, everybody you speak about John Charles, but he was an amazing person. Granted, he was a very, very good footballer, unbelievable footballer. You know, he used to play left back in that Welsh team, every other week he would play in the centre midfield in the Premier League, and you'd look at him and he was just like, wow. But it was just everything, the way he conducted himself, the way he spoke to it. As I said, he was speaking to me and he knew who we played against the weekend before, who we were going to be playing against. And he's just like, you know, he was just was a great man. He was just amazing. And
Yeah.
you see every year when, you know, his birthday comes up, and that the tributes that everybody who knew him and were lucky to play with him and against him as well. As you say, there's not a bad word said about him. So everybody can't be wrong, can they?
No, they can't, especially now. And I mean, I do remember, I have watched Gareth Speed play. I have watched him play for Wales, and I have had the absolute best opportunity to meet him. And I remember so well. It was a Cardiff City match, but I think he was building up to a Wales game or something. And some of the Wales players, I think Darcy Blake, wherever he is nowadays, but you know, I think he was coming to watch some of those players. And next, you know, because I was hunting for autographs like I used to do, and next, you know, I see a man in a nice suit. I give that man credit for having a nice style, and he's walking through around the cars. I'm thinking, that's Gary Speed there, and just walked up, and thing is, I just didn't know what to say because it was Gary Speed, and I just went like that to him, and he's like, "Oh, you right? Do you want me to sign that?" I went, "Yeah," and I had a picture of them and got it framed and everything, and just the honor, absolute honor.
Exactly. And as I say, he is very sorely missed. It's a tragedy, it really is.
Moving on to from Wales now. So coming up to your time towards the end of your Brentford career, you then went on to, if I'm right, and guess, I got my research here, my pads and that. You went to Bradford. Yeah, is that right then? Did you go from Brentford to Bradford? Yeah. That's going to be a mouthful, isn't it? From Brentford to Bradford.
All the B's.
Yeah. Was there any clubs that were looking to have your signature on the dotted line, or?
There was a few. I was coming out of, I was out of contract, and I think I'd scored something like 10 or 11 goals, maybe a couple more that season. And there was one or two things that were supposedly going to happen, and they wanted, but in football it was always, you know, and then I had a firm offer from a few clubs, and Bradford seemed, you know, really attractive. They'd only come down from the Premier League a year or two earlier. They were wanting to get back up with a younger kind of team and everything, and there was some good pros there as well, but I didn't really know exactly what was going to go on. But it's football, you know, people can say this and that, but if I hadn't signed for Bradford City, then I didn't get the chance to play for Nottingham Forest, which happened, you know, 18 months or so later, which, you know, is the biggest and best football club I got to play for.
And what was playing for Bradford City like then? Because, you know, they League One or League Two now? I can't remember, but in that,
I think the league. Do you know what? I think the League Two at the moment. Yeah, I think they are League Two.
I was, in all fairness, when they got to the finals of that League Cup, you know, I was all for them. I didn't care about Swansea, and that's not me because, you know, Swansea and Cardiff issue, that ain't nothing to do with me. But I thought Bradford they were scratching and clawing their way to that final, and to lose 5-0 to Swansea, I thought, because that, I think if they would have gone into Europe, you know, that League Two club playing in Europa League and get that much money, you know, because they're playing against big European clubs, I think that would have helped big time to get promotion, and, you know, dare I say it.
Yeah, but you say that, and they've been back, you know, they've had a playoff final, and they've had a couple of other good cup runs. So I don't know. It seems to be, I don't know. The club has always maybe had a few money troubles since Mr. Richmond left all them years ago. So I don't know. I still live not far from, you know, just on the outskirts of, well, in Yorkshire. So I live not far from Bradford, not far from Leeds. But it is a bit sad sometimes how it has demised. But as I say, that's the times with football as well, isn't it? There was a few things went on when I was there that was a bit, you know, you hear stories about signing certain players when they're Premier League in London because they didn't want them to come up to Bradford or to see the training ground or no training ground as there was back then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Valley Parade, 25,000 seating capacity, you know, stadium in League Two. But that just goes to show, if you just look back on Bradford, they were a decent big club, you know, to have a...
Yeah. Well, as you say, they had a couple of years in the Premier League. They signed some signed some big hitters and big names back in the day, but they slowly went down. And as I say, things, I played for them in the Championship, and then I went back there 3 years after I left in League Two, and they were still getting crowds of 15, 18,000 then. They did a very good scheme with the season tickets. But as I say, I don't know. They seem to have kicked on a few years, and then they got relegated. And I think with different owners, as different owners have different ways or visions of how the club are going to go, and it's hard to put them into place. Everybody has a vision of how they want their life, but there's not many who actually go along that vision, is there?
Yeah. So when you were going on to Nottingham Forest now, when you went to Nottingham Forest, how did that transfer happen, and what was it like to play for Nottingham Forest, really?
Yeah. Well, the transfer was supposed to happen 2.5 weeks earlier. At this time, I'd deferred a certain part of our wages the year before, and then we got that back, and then we had to defer another big part of our wages. So a bid come in for Nottingham Forest, and Bradford rejected it. And I spoke with the manager, Brian Wilson, at the time, and I was just like, I'm only getting paid 50% of my wages. This is my chance to go and play for a massive club. I wonder. And he was like, well, it's not me who's made the decision. I understand where you're coming from. And then all of a sudden, back in the old days, it was about 5 o'clock on a Thursday was the transfer deadline. I think it was the last Thursday in March. And at 4:30, I got a call from my agent saying, Bradford have accepted a deal from Forest. You better get to the ground quick to sign. I signed on loan so I could get it done, and then I signed my permanent contract. But it was all a lot different contract than it was the 2.5 weeks earlier, believe me.
At your time at Nottingham Forest, because I think was it your first season that the team were relegated?
Yeah, my first full season. When I went there, they were in the bottom three. Me and Paul Gerrard signed on the same day, and we had a really good run of games. I think we went 8 unbeaten, and we finished mid-table quite comfortably. But then the next season, we come in, and it probably started from pre-season. We went on a run the first day, and the fitness coach said he had a sore knee, so he told us to run around there and back. And it just, I don't know. There was a lot of things going on with the club, and then we changed manager halfway through the season, and we did end up getting relegated. Yeah. Probably not my best friend in football, Mr. Gary Megson, became my manager, and it was hard, especially the season when we got relegated, because my last season that I played in League One, before that I'd scored, as I said before, I think 11, 12 goals, but I was just literally, kicked out of the way, down the corridor, told to keep away from the matches. It was hard. It was really hard.
And I'm just looking at the players, because I had to write some of them down, the squad you had, I thought, and they went down. I was like Gareth Taylor, Andy Melville, Wes Morgan, who went on to win the Premier League. I mean, you said Paul Gerrard, Wes Morgan, John Curtis, Des Walker. Chris
Des in that season, I think Des only played 1 or 2 games because he retired the year before. But he had to play at the start of the season. James Perch started that year and came up. But it was difficult. There was, as I say, we're joking here, Alan Rodgers, Andy Impey, they were in the team. Marlon King. Yeah. So we didn't have a bad team. As I say, the team, there wasn't much changes from the team when we'd gone 8 unbeaten. But then when Gary came in, he kind of changed everything, and it was his way or the highway, and he brought his own kind of players in. And I've got to be honest, the dressing room didn't like him at all. The dressing room did not like him at all. It was hard for everybody. It was hard for everybody.
Was there any big falling outs with him, the manager, then, with the players?
Well, his first game we played Millwall at home and we lost 2-1. And at Forest, you come up straight up the tunnel and the home dressing room's right in front of you. So we were all sat there after the game, a bit gutted, and Danny Dickey knocked on the door. He was, "Take that, Megs," and and everyone's like, "What's he on about?" A week or two later, everybody knew what he was on about. It came to a head with me. I'd been everywhere pre-season, never played. Got on for 4 minutes, I think, at Torquay away after going Denmark and everything, then played in the reserves and was scoring a few. And it was one day we were doing gym, and I went to go in the gym, and his fitness coach just put his arm across the door. He went, "You're not coming in." I was like, "What are you on about?" He went, "If you got a problem, go and see the manager." So I went and seen the manager, and I said, "What's your problem?" He said, "Are you thick? Can you not tell that I don't want you?" I said, "Well, you said to me if I come back pre-season, I'll have a fair chance as anybody. I've come back as fit as I can. I've completed everything. I'm scoring goals in the reserves." He went, "You'll never play for this club again." I was like, okay. So then I was training with about 3 or 4 of us. Match days had to go in at 8 o'clock in the morning, train, and then be away by 9:30, 10 o'clock. So we weren't allowed to be seen by the fans, because if you're not seen by the fans, then they forget you a bit. Then I'd get phone calls saying, "Oh, you're not going to be playing in the reserve." So I ended up asking Mick Hartford if I could train with Rotherham. I said, "I just need to train." I said, and because Mick had been a coach at Forest with Joe. And he was like, yeah. He said, "But I can't afford to sign you." I was like, "I'm not asking you to sign me, do anything." I said, "I just want to train properly." I said, "Because if I need to." And I trained with Mick for a week, and he said, "I've done a deal with Forest." He said, "But we need your help." And I was like, "What?" He went, "We can't pay you appearance money." I went, "I don't want appearance money." He said, "I'll sign. I don't want to play. I want to play football." So I did. I played a few games for Rotherham, but then I got injured in the week, and I kept it quiet. And then at the weekend, I'd done something to my other knee, so I ended up going in at the end of my loan, and I had 2 knee operations, 1 on each knee. So I was out for 12, 13 weeks with that. And when I got back, it was literally, well, I wasn't allowed to do my rehab at Forest. I was told if I wanted to, I'd got to come in at 6 and 7 o'clock at night. And then literally one of my last, I got fit, and then I think Megson got sacked. And I'll never forget the next day, everybody went in, and it was literally like a party. Everybody was laughing and joking. You know, it was literally, and the proof was in the pudding, because 2 of the coaches took over and they nearly got in the playoffs from where they were nearly going to get relegated.
You know, when you went to, there was a moment where from 2006-7 season, and then the following season afterwards, you went from Swindon and then back to Bradford. What was happening?
Yeah.
What was happening during that time for you? Was you thinking about your position of playing football, or were you just like you said, you're just happy to play football? What was going on at that time?
I went to Swindon with Dennis Wise. I had a phone call in the summer when my contract finished at Forest, and also I'd been in contact with Blackpool. They wanted to sign me because during my time at Bradford, I'd had a loan spell at Blackpool. And Dennis Wise was like, "Look, I know how you play. I want you to come to Swindon." You know, they were offering me quite a good deal, 2 or 3 years. And my wife was from not far from the area. So I thought, you know, and then we talked about it, and I said, "Do you know what?" I went down there and I took a year's deal. I thought I'd play football for a year. I hadn't played much the year before. And I played, and I was doing okay. It was in League Two, but I was playing well. I'd scored quite a few goals, 4 or 5, I think, before Christmas. And then I got a bad injury. I'd come back from a knee injury, and I thought I was only travelling with the team. But Paul Stoic said, he named me on the bench, and I was like, kind of, "What are you doing? I've only trained 2 days." And then he put me on. Funny thing was, we had a French lad, and he screamed, and he got stretchered off and taken to hospital in an ambulance. So I went on after about 15 minutes, and then I come off in about 70 minutes. One of my own players, I played a ball, and he booted me just above the laces on your boot, and I'd never been in so much pain. So I was like, wow, and I'd come off. So went in the next day, which was Christmas Eve, went to the hospital, had x-rays and things, and then I had the doctors telling me it's an old injury, it's a new injury. I was like, look, 24 hours ago, I was fit. I could run, I said, now I can't even walk. So they just put me in plaster for over Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Paul.
yeah, literally a red plastic. There you go. Come back in 10 days. So I went back in 10 days, and they were this and that. Went to see a specialist, and he went, okay. And I had an ankle operation. And I remember waking up thinking, oh, it's burning on the inside. It was painful. So I asked the surgeon, he went, oh, you said it was painful there. So we opened you up, but nothing was there. I was like, oh, okay. So I was doing my rehab, was trying to come back, and kept having this sharp stabbing pain all the time. So I went to a surgeon who did an operated on my knee, not far from me. Who, looking back now, I wish I'd have just, said to the club at the time, no, I'll go and see the surgeon by me. I've used him before. And he just took an X-ray and he went, that's the problem. I went, what? He went, they've left the bone at the bottom of your tibia, the osteophyte. They should have shaved that off. So he did the surgery, did all that, come back fit pre-season. We got promoted with Swindon, but hadn't heard nothing back from them all through the summer. So I thought this is a bit strange. So Bradford said, oh, do you want to come in training? So I come in and they offered me a contract. So I thought, I'll take that. I'm back home. So was with Bradford. We had not a bad season, not a great one. We didn't make the playoffs. But for the first time in my career, they'd put something in the contract that if I made 23 appearances in the league, I get another year. So halfway through January, start of February, I get a phone call on the Friday night, just to let you know you're near. And I knew I was near. I needed one or two more. We're not going to do it. And you need to look at the agent needed to look at the contract because it's not weighed in your favour. And I was like, pardon, it's 23 appearances, another year. And it was like, no, it's not. So you're not going to play. So it was me and Darren Williams, the lad. I think that Darren played for Cardiff. I'm sure he did. Ex-Sunderland, kind of defender, sometimes midfielder.
What's his name again?
Darren Williams.
I'm sure
he did. And he played for Sunderland as well.
Yeah, I'm having a look now. Darren Williams, there we are. Sunderland, 200 appearances. Cardiff City, Hartlepool, Bradford.
Yeah, Bradford, there you go, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were in the same boat. So next thing I get a phone call off Darren. He says, have you had that phone call? I went, yeah. He went, I can't believe it. So we carried on training for a couple of weeks and then they come to us and said, will you waiver that clause and if you carry on playing at the end of the season? So we were like, yeah, fair enough. And then it got to near the end of the season and they were like, no, we're not going to give you one. We want to try and pay you up, And I was like, okay. So then they tried to negotiate and you're like, well, that's not even a figure that I'll get if I stay on. So we did that. And then I really struggled to get a club. I went on a couple of places on trial. I went to one team on trial. I won't say they were in the league. And I was there for 3 weeks. And just before the season started, the manager said, I'm looking for someone a bit taller. And I literally laughed down the phone and I went, okay, thanks. And I just thought, if you've watched me for 3 weeks, you surely know how tall I play. I've played over 500 and something odd appearances throughout my career. You're the one who phoned me. So it was that. And then I ended up signing for Oxford and I'd started to fall out of love with football, to tell you the truth, with stuff going on there. It was a bad eye opener. So that was it really. And then I started studying to become a massage therapist, sports massage therapist.
Considering you were born in Oswestry, I don't know, it's just a long shot in the dark really, but considering that you were born in Oswestry, was there any consideration or any idea that towards the end of your football career that you could just try TNS at that stage? Just a shot in the dark, because considering, because normally I speak to a few former players and there have been one or two that have taken a shot in the dark and said, you know what, I'm going to try for my local side or anything, or the local team, and they've gone on to become club legends there. Anything was it? And you just said then it was a no, but considering...
No, I did. So I'd signed at Oxford in the September, and it was only a deal till January. And I got invited to watch TNS v Real when Real had Greg Strong, Neil Roberts, quite a few of them. So I got invited down, and I spoke to TNS, and they were like, "Yeah, what would you do?" I said, "Well, I live in Yorkshire, but obviously my parents are there. What would yours say?" So I talked to them, and then Real got in touch as well. So I spoke to them, and then it went to the end of that season. I did all my studying for my qualifications. I got them. But in that summer, Real said, will you come and train? We're in Europe. We really want to, sign you up. Neil Roberts was there, as I say. Greg Strong. There was a few. So I went and trained a few times with Real. And then they were just about to play in Europe. But they were playing a big team abroad. I can't remember who it was. And they said that Oshin was part of the thing, and John Bickerstaff, he would have been the manager. And
Probably.
they said, yeah, they said to me, look, we want to sign you. They said, but we're going to be honest with you now, we don't know what's happening with the ownership of the club. We've heard one or two things, and it was back then, and I was like, I'm in an island. I went, okay. So I didn't sign. Gareth Owen was playing there as well. Gaz Owen was playing there. So I was like, okay. So I decided I didn't sign, and I signed for a local, I think it was Conference North team, but then I got offered a job. So I literally just finished playing football then, because it dawned on me that if I got injured playing on a Saturday for that team, that they ain't gonna. I've got no insurance. Then I need a job. So then I started at Notts County. So TNS. Yeah, I did speak to them. I went and watched them. As I say, spoke to them all and everything, and a bit with Will and everything. But no, nothing did ever come from that, really.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, really. Cause in one way, growing up, my dad used to work at a Lance and Fried, so obviously TNS were Lance and Fried.
Yeah.
You're probably too young to remember that.
Oh, TNS Lance and Fried. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was Lance and Fried to start with.
Yeah. Well, considering, because when you become a Welsh League fan, especially with Barry Town, who were the dominant side back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you get to learn about the other clubs that Barry were around, and Llansanfraid were considered to be the rivals of Barry, because they were the only ones who can actually properly compete against them. I'd say.
Yeah, well, they won. I remember them winning the Welsh Cup.
Yeah.
Like Llansanfraid won the Welsh Cup, and my dad's boss was unbelievably, he's ecstatic and everything.
Yeah, I just I look back at it and I just think, and now TNS have taken the throne of Welsh football in some ways, but until Connacht Key, they were they earned it in some ways, but they were given the Welsh Premier League title or Cymru Premier title. Yeah. But you've now got yourself a job as a sports massage therapist then, and what clubs did you go to? Because I saw that it was Leeds United, and you said Sheffield United, and there was...
Yeah, I did a year at Notts County. A coach of mine who was then the manager, Ian McParland, he was a coach of mine at Nottingham Forest. I just phoned up and said, I'm newly qualified. Is it okay to come in? I was going in at Leeds, all free of charge. And I went into Notts County, and they were paying me expenses, and I started going in a few more days a week. And then Charlie, as he's known, he got the sack, and I was like, oh no. And I think he got the sack on the Monday, and on the Tuesday they offered me a full-time employment contract. I was like, wow. This was Sven-Goran Eriksson was still there. It was the time when Sol Campbell played one game, and and I was like, so I had to, that was the first job offer I had, so I took it, and it was great. We won the league. There was some very big characters, but it was great. And then at the end of that season, Derby County asked me would I want an interview. Because they were looking for a massage therapist, and I went for an interview and I got the job there. And again, that was brilliant. It was really good. So I had a year there under Nigel Clough, which was strange times, but good times. Again, you're talking about the old school, and it was really good. But at the end of that season, I was let go, and I'm not going to lie, I bawled my eyes out. It happened on Friday the 13th, and I bawled my eyes out. When you're a footballer, if you're going to get a new contract or if you're not. It's quite, I didn't see this coming. I thought I'd worked as hard as I could. I'd gotten well with everybody. And this happened on Friday the 13th. And I remember pulling out of the training ground, pulling into a lay-by and phoning my wife and crying my eyes out, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. They got in touch with me. They wanted me. So yeah, that summer was a bit strange, but a friend of mine said that Leicester City were looking for one. And I just had a phone call, and they offered me the job straight away. And I absolutely loved working at Leicester. I had 2 amazing years at Leicester. The people there were brilliant. They were really good. And it got to a stage where I had a phone call from Leeds United offering me the job. But they knew I was at Leicester, so I spoke with Leicester, and I was getting up at 4:45 in the morning and driving down to Leicester. And I'd done that for 2 years, and the previous 2 years for that was driving to Nottingham and to Derby. So Leeds' training ground's 45 minutes up the road. So I sat down with my wife and we ummed and ahed, and I don't think I would have, if Leeds and Leicester were exactly the same distance apart, I wouldn't have left Leicester. As I say, I really enjoyed it. And then I went and had 6 years at Leeds United, which was, wow, interesting to say the least. A roller coaster is probably like a little ride on a bumper car, not even that. If you'd say them 6 years at Leeds United, it was some crazy things happened.
And you're sworn to secrecy, is it, to keep yourself?
I'm not sworn to secrecy. It's well publicised with the ownership what went on. I think I had, what did I work it out as? If you counted interim managers, I had 3 owners of the club. I think it was 11 or 12 managers in 6 years. So it was
proper roller coaster.
Yeah, it was madness. It was madness, and I left Leeds last year. It was just literally the time was right to leave, and then I've worked at Sheffield United for the last year or so, and I'm really enjoying it. I've kind of got my buzz back and everything, because, as I say, things were happening at Leeds and it was quite draining. There's a lot of stuff that goes on off the field at football clubs which nobody knows about.
Yeah.
And sometimes, well, quite a few times at Leeds, the press were coming out with things and we had to bite our lips because they weren't happening. But the press believed that they're happening, and they still got some of the local press still go on as though these things happened 4 or 5 years ago, and you just feel like saying they didn't. The people who leaked them stories to you were telling rubbish. It didn't happen.
Just saying a few of this, that's what it is probably,
and trying to keep in with the local press at the time.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was amazing. And I know how much of a massive club Leeds United is. It is a big club, and they're back in the Premier League and everything. But, I used to speak to my dad and that about it. And he just say, Dad, if people knew 20%, 30% what was actually going on behind, it was crazy.
Yeah.
As I say, it was eventful, but for 6 years of your life, bloody hell, it was crazy.
Well, at this moment in time, I think on behalf of the Wales fans and Wales community, send our regards to Ethan Ampadu for coming into Sheffield United, which is cracking for Ethan, though. I mean, he needs some game time and everything, and we couldn't be more happy that he's actually picked a proper club like Sheffield United to give him that benefit and opportunity to come in and show what he's capable of.
Yeah, seems a really nice bloke as well. Yeah. I had a couple of chats with Ethan. He played last night, played very well. We play a kind of a unique system and a unique way of playing Sheffield United, and he slotted in last night and did very, very well. I had 1 or 2 chats with him and told him that I used to play against his dad and that as well. And then he came in the other day and said he was 20. You're like, you're born in 2000. We're like, no, how old are we? I celebrated my 46th birthday a couple of weeks before his, and he's like, I used to play against your dad and everything. He's like, but no, seems a very good player, very accomplished player, good on the ball. But I work with a colleague who's the masseur for Wales anyway, Chris Senior. So he's told us all about Ethan and everything anyway. So I really hope Ethan has a good season this year.
Last question on this podcast, and I'm very grateful that you actually came on to tell your stories and everything. So I think I'm going to sum up in this last question. And I say this to everyone, and for some reason they seem to be taken back by this question. But how do you look back on your career?
With happiness. I was privileged to play 16, 17 years of professional football. It's all I wanted to do. People say, would you change anything? But you could change things, but you don't know what's going to... I did the job that I love doing, and I was privileged. I got to play for my country. And, it was 2 caps. I was in the squad 5 or 6 times, but you can't take that away from me. I wouldn't change it for this world. The only thing I would change is I wish I had played at Anfield. I never got to play at Anfield. I played against them for Shrewsbury. And it was at the game Edo. Everyone thought it was going to get changed. I thought it was going to get changed. Then the game got called off and I'd been sent off in the replay, so I had a 4-match ban. And me and a couple of the other lads were shoveling snow off the pitch to get a game on so we could play against them. But no, that's my only thing. And I used to laugh and joke about that near the end of my career. Like when I was at Oxford and stuff, they were like, oh, I said, look, even if I played a reserve game at Anfield and they said, this is the last time game you're going to play football, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. I want to play at Anfield. I never got to play it there. That's regret. I don't think it's a regret because I never really got the chance to, but I loved my career, even the bad bits.
Well, Paul, thank you for coming on the show and just talking about career.
No problem.
And it's great to just have a nice chat about, there's some things I didn't even know, and it's great to hear, about your experience, about the clubs you played for, and any guest that comes on, it's always new, it's always refreshing, and I thought, and funny enough, I had Steve Jenkins who came on the show, and he said to me, it's a Welsh football family, so it's always there to help.
No, he's right, yeah.
Yeah, and
he's definitely right.
And I just want to say a big thank you so much for coming on.
No problem at all. Right. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. So, guys, thank you so much. That was Paul Evans on the Dragons Voice podcast, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and especially around this time, and I keep saying this over and over again, just keep hanging on. We're going to get there in the end, and one day we're going to be back in the stands. It doesn't matter you're at Anfield or Jenner Park. It doesn't matter. We're going to be there, and we're going to be giving abuse to the opposition players. Okay, it's okay, but it's okay. We're going to get there. But anyway, let's just keep the football spirit going. Whether it's on the telly or where you're volunteering or doing anything right, these football clubs are going to need your help, and they know they're going to help you as much as you're going to help them. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning into the Dragons Voice podcast. I've been your host, Trudy Rees-Deans, and I'll see you all very soon. Cheers.